Go ahead.
This is Frankie Edgar, UFC fighter. Welcome to the Trevor Airdrie Show.
Welcome everybody to episode 19 of the Trevor Airdrie Show. I am your host, Trevor Airdrie. Special shout out to my boy Corey Sharon for the theme song Get Back Up. We have a big show planned for the day. We have the fallout of WSOF 14. We have the news that's hit the MMA world this week. And as well, we have PFC 3, the rundown of the whole show coming out of London, Ontario this upcoming weekend. If you haven't got tickets, get your tickets now, and it's going to be a great night of fights. Without anything further, on to the show. The recap sponsored by Street Soldier, sick swag at sick prices. Go to www.strtsoldier.com and get yours today. Alright, this past weekend, WSOF 14, we had an incredible card coming out of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. It was headlined by Jake Shields versus Ryan Ford in a welterweight tilt. Jake Shields came out and, pushed the pace. Ryan Ford looked a little hesitant, which we found out after the fight that he had a broken arm going into the fight. And Jake Shields did exactly what the game plan called for. Take it to the ground, grind out the knockout specialist, and submit him, which Jake Shields finally accomplished at 4:29 of round 1. It was a great rear naked choke that Shields was fighting for almost 2 minutes of the first round. Finally sunk it in and gets himself a victory. And they also announced after the fight he will be fighting for the welterweight championship of World Series of Fighting coming up in the future. In the co-main event of the night, we had a heavyweight title fight. I'm always a big critic when a promotion puts a title shot a title underneath arguably a title shot. It kind of devalues the title, but Derek Mayman and Shmilo Rama, they definitely delivered in a heavyweight tilt. They didn't have that 3-round long grueling decision. No, Shmilo Rama came out, cut great angles, and just peppered Derek Mayman at will, knocking Mayman out at 51 seconds of round 1. And Shmilo Rama is your new WSOF heavyweight champion, and the inaugural one at that. And before that, we had Chris Polish Hammer Hordeski out of London, Ontario, fighting Lewis Waite. It was a 30-27 three ways for Hordeski. I predicted Hordeski to win. He looked really good on the ground. He's really powerful with the hands. He made good in and out movements and just connected at will. And it was a perfect judging call by the judges of this past weekend, with Hordeski just pushing the pace. Definitely deserved the 30-27 score at the end of it. And yeah, Hordeski, I would want to say with him going forward, I'd like to see him fight a guy like Rick Glenn, a guy like Georgie Karikian, one of those higher ups at WSOF in the featherweight division. And starting out our night on TSN2, we had Jared Haman defeating Luke Harris from Tough Nations. I was very puzzled with Luke Harris's game plan going into this fight. I didn't quite understand why a submission specialist like Harris's wanted to stand and bang with a KO artist of Jared Haman. I just didn't understand that, and obviously it worked right into Haman's favor, with Haman gaining the TKO via punches, 227 in round 1. And on the prelim card, I'll go through this pretty quick. We had Tim Hagg defeating Craig Hudson in a fight that I called the fight of the night. Hudson dominated for 2.5 rounds before he got sunned, and Tim Hagg knocks him out 255 of round 3. We had Hakeem Dawodu defeating Mike Mallet via TKO. Matt Baker defeating Cody Cron via submission armbar. And starting off the night, we had Roger Alves taking care of business against David Swanson, 30-27 three ways. So that was our WSOF 14. It was a great night of fights. You had the inaugural heavyweight championship, which congratulations to Smilo Rama for getting. And, we had another fight that was called off. We had Michael Hill that was supposed to fight Marcus Hicks that got pulled off the card when Hicks missed weight and Hill declined the catchweight bout, which is understandable. Fighters are definitely allowed to call off a fight if their opponent can't make weight. And I actually agree with that decision. I never understood why they would accept that catchweight fight, even for the additional money or whatnot. You're going in against a guy that's bigger than you. If you're like a ground guy, that's extra weight that you have to take down. And if a fighter's signing a contract, make weight. It's your job. That's it. Coming up next in the news is sponsored by Protein 2.0. Protein water, you can get it at a lot of local convenience stores and whatnot. And if you want any more information on Protein 2.0, you can go to the M&A Sports Media website, click the link for Protein 2.0 Sports Water. Alright, this week in the news, Bellator MMA has announced that Royce Gracie has jumped across to the Bellator brand and signed on to be a brand ambassador. It's very similar to the contract Viacom did with Hulk Hogan to be the brand ambassador of TNA Wrestling, or it is the exact same contract that Randy Couture signed to come across and be a brand ambassador for Bellator. It's just another weird thing that another legend's going over to the Bellator brand, following the suits of Rampage Jackson, Tito Ortiz, and the list goes on and on. So that'll be interesting to see what they intend to do with Royce Gracie going forward. We also have another big rumor coming out of the Brock Lesnar camp. According to multiple reports right now, he's looking into maybe going back to the UFC once his current contract with the WWE is up. If he's healthy, if he's completely cleared of the tuberculosis, it makes a lot of sense for a guy like Brock Lesnar. He's not really passionate about pro wrestling anymore. He looks great with what he does, but he's very limited with the amount of superstars currently in the WWE. There's guys like John Cena and so on and so forth, but when it comes to those big name, big payday days in the WWE, with the injury report right now and whatnot, there's not a whole lot of big paydays for him. And I'm pretty sure if he went back to the MMA world, there's those super fights that you could line up with Brock Lesnar that make a whole lot more sense than anything he's doing right now in the WWE, even being WWE World Champion. Also, UFC Canada has announced, and Dana White has also stated, that Rory McDonald will fight the winner of Johnny Hendricks and Robbie Lawler, and it's rumored to be in Montreal in March. It makes a lot of sense for the UFC to headline the March Montreal pay-per-view with a Canadian fighting for a title. Rory McDonald fits that bill, but that makes you wonder what's going to end up happening with Georges St-Pierre. Is he coming back? When's he coming back? Is it over if Rory McDonald somehow, some way captures the UFC welterweight champion? It's one of those things that who knows what's up with GSP. There's a lot of reports saying he's gonna come back. Then there's a report the next day that says no, he's not coming back. Then he's coming back. Well, if Rory McDonald wins the welterweight championship, I have a hard time believing that GSP is coming back. Also, some very weird information that came out this past week. Jason Mayhem Miller live tweeting during a SWAT standoff. The SWAT team eventually captured Mayhem Miller, and he's currently in jail with a $200,000 bail set because from past domestic violence and stalking. It's a sad story for Jason Mayhem Miller. He, coached the Tough Series. He lost 2 in a row in the UFC. Then he gets cut, and then there was the streaking through a church, I believe it was, and then this new SWAT standoff where he's live tweeting during it. I wish him a little bit of peace in the coming years. Hopefully he can solve all his problems and move forward from it all. And finally this week, we have Joe Warren becoming Bellator's first ever 2-division champion when he defeated 135-pound title holder Eduardo Dantas, and that also stems from winning the featherweight title earlier in his career. So that concludes In the News this week. It was a big week of news, and hopefully we're going to have another big week of news coming up next week. And finally, this week we'll conclude with the PFC 3 rundown. The rundown is sponsored by M&A Sports Media. We will be at PFC 3 this coming weekend. It is this Saturday, live from the Bud Gardens Arena. If you haven't gotten your tickets, get them now. And you're going to have a great night of Canadian fights. Top name Canadian MMAers will be there. If you see me or you see my business partner Chad, definitely come up, say hi. We can talk MMA all day. And for anything more on any upcoming events, you can go to www.mnasportsmedia.com and you can get all of our upcoming events there. Alright, this weekend is PFC 3. Like I said, it is at the Bud Gardens in London, Ontario, Canada. It's going to be another great night of fights brought to you by Jamie Champion and the PFC crew. It's main evented by Jesse Ronson versus Dom O'Grady. Jesse Ronson has recently fought in the UFC. He had 3 back-to-back controversial split decision losses that I actually said he won all 3 of them, but the judges on those given nights all went the other way. But 3 straight split decision controversial decisions. He should be back in the UFC in no time. So if you're in the London area, you can come see Jesse Ronson fight before he goes back to the UFC. And he's fighting a very talented Dom O'Grady. This fight, I am giving the edge to Jesse Ronson. I believe Ronson is very hungry right now. I believe he's going to win via first round KO. I think it's going to be one of those highlight reel, walk away, knockout of the night performances, just because of stemming off of what has gone on in his last 3 fights. I think he's just going to come out angry. I think he's going to come out physical, and he's just going to knock Dom O'Grady out. Co-main event of the night, another London boy, Jesse Gross, going up against Justin Gaines. I'm going to give this to Jesse Gross. I think it's going to be a unanimous decision, 30-27 3 ways. Gross is just one of those guys that he will gas you out, and if it is going to be a finish, I can definitely see it that way too. But I think Jesse Gross has what it takes, and the cardio's there, and I believe that this has a very good possibility of being a fight of the night performance. I believe that these 2 guys are going to go to war, but I believe that Gross is going to take a 30-27 3 ways unanimous decision. Before that, one of my favorite fighters, Malcolm Gordon, is going to put his perfect record on the line against Randy Turner in what is going to be the hardest test of this young Canadian in Malcolm Gordon. I am taking Malcolm Gordon. I believe it's going to be a submission in round 2. It's going to be a very quick fight, very action-packed fight. I believe it's going to be a submission of the night, and Malcolm Gordon will be your winner there. Another one of my Canadian favorites, Kyle Prepelic, is going up against Damian Hill. I believe it's going to be the prep show, where Prepelic is just going to pick him apart. I still believe this is going to be a decision, probably another unanimous one. I'm going to say probably 29-28. After a little bit of a slow start from Prepelic, I see him just coming on and dominating the last 2 rounds and winning 29-28. Starting off what would be a main card, but it is not televised, so make sure you get your tickets at the Bud Gardens on Saturday, is Adam Asenza versus Joey Holt. I'm going to go with Asenza here. Asenza is just a beast when it comes down to grinding you out and whatnot. He's just one of the... He reminds me a lot of an Elias Theodoro from the UFC, or, you know, just one of those guys that grinds and grinds and grinds and grinds and just eventually takes the win. I'm going to go with another unanimous decision here for Adam Asenza, probably 29-28 as well. And before that, we have a heavyweight tilt of the 2-0 Brian Jordan against the 2-2 Blake Nash. I'm going to go with Brian Jordan here. First round knockout, probably within the first minute, so you better not blink here. I believe it's just going to be the Brian Jordan knockout hour where he just destroys this fight and takes home the victory. Prior to that, we have David Hale versus Nalin Hordat. I'm going to go with David Hale here, probably via knockout in round 3. I think it's going to be a late knockout here, but I'm going to go with David Hale in this fight. And then I'm going to run down the last 3 fights pretty quick. We have Josh Rich versus James Mancine. I'm going to go with Josh Rich to go to 3-0 in that fight, probably via decision. I'm going to go with Chris Lee Byrne over Rafael Palomiquez via submission. I believe it's going to go to the ground and get over early. And then starting off the night, we have Xavier Nash versus Paul Gilbert. I'm going to go with Xavier Nash via decision in that fight as well. So definitely go to PFC 3 this weekend. It's in London, Ontario. If you are in the London area, make sure you do go out and support Jamie Champion and the boys. Street Soldier, who I'm repping the hat right now, they're sponsoring numerous guys, so you can go and pick up your Street Soldier swag at the event. You can watch a night of great fights, headlined by a former UFC fighter. As well, we have a bunch of hometown fighters on this card. We also have a lot of Canadian content on this card. Support your local athletes. Go to PFC 3 this weekend. You will not regret it. The first 2 cards were incredible. This one is going to be, this is going to blow the roof off of Bud Gardens on the weekend. So definitely come out to London, and I will see you there this Saturday night. So that's the show for this week. Join me next week for episode 20. It's going to have the recap from PFC 3, my experiences from PFC 3, much like an earlier recap of PFC 2 if you want to go back and check through the videos. So, you know, I'd like to thank Street Soldier, Protein 2.0 Water. You can check both those out online as well. M&A Sports Media, the home of the Trevor Airdrie Show. I am the A of M&A, so check us out. And without anything further, and until next time, dream it, believe it, achieve it. I'm Trevor Airdrie, signing off.